And the Raptors are 0-2 for Detroit. The focal point here for Toronto. Both
showing that he's not just going to be a defender.
one back to Thompson. Oh, and a Reapers. How about that teammate?
Full year of existence they've got.
Raptors. Nice little shimmy shake by Dick. Gradey Dick. And a great hustle here to save the possession for the Raptors. Scooper. Joe, here's a look for you.
Not if we watch when I'm at the office or something like this.
Coming up. So I just want to lob it out here for you as Gradey Dick launches another three from up top. 11 in the quarter for Gradey Dick. He's got 18 altogether. We're all getting away from it. We're all getting away with something, I can tell you that. All right, coming up on the under three break. Here's G on the right. And Gradey Dick with the intercept. It's a really big-time endeavor.
Oh, the hook!
Gradey Dick, and the hook is in.
Working without the basketball, coming off what would have been an Iverson cut, but a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Mimicking model what they've done in the past. So guys like Joe.
Good looks. Couldn't finish. Gradey Dick
look.
in the corner. Gradey Dick. Detroit is head yet. Gradey Dick left, and they're going to try.
Great hands.
Clean pick, Sasser to the Harper on the trigger. Brown catches, drive to Dick in the corner for three, rimmed off.
All right. Gradey Dick, let's talk about him. Let's talk about the Raptors Summer League squad, which has been absolutely terrible. Let's be honest, right? 0-3. It's not about the wins. It's not about the losses. It's not really about those numbers because they don't mean a hell of a lot, right? This isn't real basketball. Sorry to tell you, this is not real basketball, but it is an exhibition. It is an exhibition of trying to see what a college player that we saw playing in a particular system can do outside of that system. Now, obviously, I was not the highest on Gradey Dick coming out of college. I didn't love some of the tape that I watched. Obviously, since he's been drafted to the Raptors, I've been doing a lot of deep dives into him in high school and college, some of the games that I missed. I wanted to see what I was looking for coming into Summer League was really to show that he was a three-level scorer. I wanted to see his playmaking. We'd seen flashes of it, but obviously in certain situations, you're going to be able to flash a little bit more of that than in others. And I got to tell you, across 3 games, I am thoroughly impressed. Like absolutely impressed that he can do this on a team this bad. He has stood out in every single game that he's played, regardless of the numbers. So today we're going to talk about Gradey Dick. We're going to talk about what he's showing that I think maybe is going a little bit underrated by Raptor fans who are too quick to call him CJ Miles or whatever. And the lines are open. You're free to call in. This is a call-in show. So link in the description. You can call in. We can talk about it. We can talk about what you've seen. If you want to talk about some other players, we can talk about that too. All right. So let's talk about what I saw from Gradey Dick tonight or today specifically. I'm going to tell you, this guy is absolutely gassed. If you can't tell, he is not in game shape, right? He's playing himself into shape. And I don't necessarily care or hold it against anybody to not come into the draft cycle in like super elite game shape. But he is winded. Like after the third quarter, I tell you, he was in for 2 minutes and it was like, yo, that 2K stamina bar, it's on zip. Like he is holding his jersey. He's holding his shorts. He's huffing. He doesn't have that second effort on defense. He got beat a couple of times and then he just didn't recover. So you're looking for glimpses because, again, this is not real. This does not count. It does not matter. If Marquise Noel, an undrafted dude, came into this cycle and came into Summer League out of shape, I would be very concerned. But for a lottery pick, a guy who kind of knew, this is going to be it. The last competitive basketball he played was March, right? Well, we're in July right now, firmly. Like you got to look at a year-long NBA cycle. So you got to assume that he's basically starting his offseason right now. But he's been thrust out to the Wolves in a system that does not make a hell of a lot of sense. I tweeted out right in the beginning of the year, right in the beginning of the game, when the Raptors opened up disastrously against the Detroit Pistons, and they were just getting whopped up and down the court. I was like, man, a point guard who applies no pressure on the rim, a lack of wing creativity, a lack of spacing, and a center who can't shoot from outside of 6 feet. This Vegas Raptor team is giving me 2022, 2023 Raptor vibes, and not in a good way. So to thrive in a game like this against competent level defenders on the other side, Ausar Thompson is decent, a really decent NBA wing defender, athletic. You gotta give kudos, right? Now, obviously, the Jason Tatum graphic in the beginning was in jest. Jason's one of my favorite players, and obviously, I'm not saying that Gradey Dick is going to be Jason Tatum, but there's a little bit more Jason Tatum in his game than maybe I thought was there. And if he turns into a watered down, poor man's Jason Tatum, I think the Raptors have a really great player on their hands. I watched a lot of Jason Tatum in college. I was a very big fan. So I'm not making that comparison at all, like flippantly or lazily. Like there is a lot there that's showing up. I'll tell you a few things that have really stuck out to me. He's longer than he measured. Like he may have measured at a 6'9" wingspan, but I think it's just his narrow shoulders. This guy is all arms, and those arms are everywhere. It's helping him really because he is not fully engaged. He's not he doesn't know necessarily, his timing is not there. He's not in game rhythm right now. So that length is helping him not only grab rebounds, sometimes contested rebounds, sometimes tipping passes and stuff. But it's helping him get his hand on the ball. There's been something new every single game with this dude. Today was a lot more of the transition, movement shooter stuff. In the first game, it was a lot of picking passes and, on rebounds. And it feels to me that this is a guy who just cares about winning. Obviously, winning is a really high priority. And that I think he has levels. I think he can dial it up, at will. A bit of a Scotty quality, right? I think he's going to give you, if I had to bet that there was a guy who's going to put up a 20-point quarter in the first half of the season, this would be my bet. This guy he can get hot quick, right? So I like that there's a variety to his game. It's not one-dimensional. You never want to pick a one-dimensional player in the lottery. And frankly, you want to get guys who are toolsy, who can fit into different lineups, who can do different things, who can fulfill different roles. I think he can be a rebounder for you, a really good one. And Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. at the guard spot didn't really provide much rebounding. This guy can do that. He can also provide grab it off the rim and go transition play, which I think is super underrated. To not have to make that first pass to a guy who can handle the ball, to just be able to get it off the rim yourself and just push it. He makes quick decisions. Quick. This guy is seeing the court in a way that I had no idea he saw the court that way. And his basketball IQ is off the charts. Truly off the charts. His awareness with and without the ball, his sense of knowing where to be, where not to be on the court is absolutely ludicrous. I'm watching this game. Now, you understand that I've gotten a lot better at this. Obviously, over the last year, breaking down film for Pizarro basketball, I watched every single game the Raptors played last year with a critical eye and a notepad. And then after the game, after I would do the lives, I would sit there for 3 hours and I would break down the game film at half speed. Doing this has allowed me to see very much in slow motion while I'm watching the game. especially when I'm really zoned into one player. There's so many things that he does in transition that are going super underrated. Like there was one play I remember where, oh God, I think it was I can't remember the player. He had a transition break, and he's got an angle to the basket, and Gradey is on the opposite wing, and he's filling the lane incorrectly. And when he sees the advantage, he actually pulls back. Like he stops running and he relocates. And it was like, man, how many players would have continued running there? Like you're not thinking, right? But his instincts and like his mind for the game is truly impressive for someone who's 19, man. I haven't seen this level in a bit. Like it's not like, okay, like who am I thinking here? Cade, no. Jalen Suggs, no. Jalen Green, no. Franz, no. Like Paolo, no. Like, no. Like these guys make these kinds of mistakes all the time. Like he's seeing this game with the eyes of like a 10-year vet right now. So why is he not dominating Summer League? Why is he not putting up 45 points per game? He's a good shooter. I think partially it's two things really holding him back right now. Number one, he's not in game shape. I think that hurts because we've seen spurts and then we've seen terrible, right? Towards the end of the game, he was so gassed. He has that turnover. He misses a whole bunch of shots. But you look at his misses tonight, there was a half-court heave. There was a couple of corner bricks that were just wide open. He'd make that shot in his sleep, right? But he's exhausted, right? His legs are not in his shot. Tired legs, short jumpers. He missed one shot clear of the rim. Like, I don't think I saw it. I haven't seen a lot of that from him in college or high school, right? He talked about in his interview today being one of the greatest shooters of all time. I think he has a chance. That's no cap. He has a chance. He has a chance to be that good as a shooter. But what else can you do? We saw a lot more punishing defenses. Now, how many times, check it in the playoffs, right? Duncan Robinson, what was the big knock on him, right? You run him off the line, doesn't have a lot. This year in the playoffs, we saw a little bit more of that from Duncan Robinson, right? Now, Duncan Robinson is in his mid-20s now. He's already got his big contract. I think he might be even in his late 20s now. So that dude has learned how to punish defenders for closing out of control. Grady's already picked up on that. They closed out on him hard. The scouting report is pull this guy off the line. He's a good three-point shooter. And now he's just punishing them. He's just going right to the rim. The second thing that's really holding him back, apart from not being really in game shape, honestly, is just he's weak. His body is just weak, right? There's so much weight training that has to happen here. Certain players are going to be further along in certain areas than others, right? And they're going to be further along and further behind relative to where they'll eventually be. You have to look at a Giannis Antetokounmpo as a rookie and say, well, he's going to struggle until he bulks up. But then when he bulked up, a lot of those long strides and long arms and all those advantages suddenly come full center. And then you can actually see, okay, that's what it is. But the vision is there. Those long strides are still there. There's just a lot missing from the package. Right now, the awareness of how to play the game, the commitment to playing the team game, not taking bad shots. Dude, you tell me a 19-year-old plays 3 summer league games, I can count all his mistakes on maybe like 20. I think maybe like 15 to 20 mistakes in 3 games. I think I've counted 15 to 20 mistakes from Siakam and Fred VanVleet in 1 game. I mean, it's credit where credit is due. It's very impressive, right? The off-ball stuff, the movement shooter stuff. You got to understand this guy's getting a lot of defensive attention right now. There's nothing that he did today that he can't do against better competition. This is where I think Summer League has to be viewed with a bit of a grain of salt, right? Because you dribble ISO against a weak defender, finish over a smallish, late rotating center. And all I'm thinking is, what are you going to do when that wing defender isn't that wing defender and rather a better wing defender? And what do you do when that big isn't late to rotate? What do you do when that guy who's like, I don't know, Jericho Sims level or lower becomes Robert Williams? Like, you're not gonna be able to finish. I'm looking at how cleanly you're getting your shots off. I'm looking at how comfortable you look. I'm looking at how you use your teammates' gravity. I'm looking at how quickly you read and react to situations, because that's not going to change, right? It's not like he's going to play against 8-footers at the next level. He's playing against NBA level athletes right now, right? He's playing at NBA style. He's playing at NBA pace, right? This is fast. The Raptors are playing pretty fast in transition. And so there's really nothing that's happening for him. The only thing that's going to change is that Jakob Poeltl is a way, way, way better player, right, than Moses Brown. And he's going to set better picks. He's going to roll harder. So the passes that are going to Moses Brown right now, where Moses is not able to catch them, or Moses is just bricking them or whatever, Jakob's not going to do that, right? Scotty Barnes, right? Scotty Barnes is 14 inches taller than the point guard he's playing with right now. And that's going to matter. If he plays with Pascal Siakam, if Siakam is not traded, well, that is a guy who can consistently, at least in theory, draw a double team. How are you supposed to double off of Gradey Dick? And he's going to make you pay all day. He's also not going to play this many minutes in the NBA. So a lot of the fatigue stuff, I mean, you're talking that second quarter where he scored 11 points, like that could be his whole game at the NBA level. 10 minutes off the bench, 11 points. Like, he can do that for you. I'm liking a lot of the cutting. I like his, little hook shot, little scoop up and under. I think his athleticism is way more solid than maybe I saw on first glance. Like, I mean, it's a very confusing player because you see him in high school and there's a lot of slashing, a lot of movement, a lot of transition stuff. And then he gets to college and it's not nearly that. There's not a lot of ball handling responsibilities. There's a lot of movement shooting and a lot of corner spacing. So that is where I think that I have misread this prospect drastically. And I'm happy that the Raptors didn't. The Raptors studied his game tape far more thoroughly, and they saw something in him. And I think that Masai Ujiri, scouting genius, strikes again, because this is a really, really good young player. If I had to do my draft board again, he might crack top 10. Like, he might be 9th or 8th at this point. Like, it's pretty crazy. Now, I have been cautioning everybody, don't pay attention to Summer League, because I genuinely believe that people are paying attention to the wrong things in Summer League. Some dude puts up 22 points and they're like, oh my God, we should have drafted him. Some dude puts up 6 threes where he's not being contested. It's like, I don't care. Like, Jordan Hawkins missed 5 free throws. I don't care. That's just whatever. His legs are tired. I don't care about that. Some dude is just dominating an offense that he's never going to play that role at the NBA level. I also don't care, right? There are guys, as I mentioned, who have certain advantages over other guys. They're further along in certain things. Some guys are further along physically. Some guys are 22, 23 years old, and they're playing against 19-year-olds. If Gradey Dick was doing this as a 22-year-old, I really wouldn't be that impressed at all. At all. But he's not doing it as a 20-year-old or a 22-year-old. He's doing this as a 19-year-old who has probably the strength of a lot of 15 to 16-year-olds in terms of NBA prospects. Where he needs to go physically, like where that progression needs to go, it can only make him better, right? I like the compete level on defense. I just like the IQ. I think smart players are players that you should bank on to be successful in the NBA. Intelligence plays such a huge part in success and failure at the NBA level. His ability to be unselfish is so important at this stage. His willingness to get off the ball, his ability to find advantages in transition, his ability to consistently be moving. I mean, that's very taxing for a player who's not in shape. No wonder he was so gassed. Like, the amount of movement that this guy had to do just to free himself up. Like, he was the only guy who really had it going for the Raptors, and Pistons figured that out. Rue's saying he's got higher basketball IQ than some dudes on this roster currently. Oh my God, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, y'all know if you've been following this channel, I have a great affinity and love for players who play the right way and who have high basketball IQ. That's why I like Jeff Doughton. That's why I like OG Anunoby. That's why I like Christian Coloco so much last year. That's why I like Scotty Barnes. So to me, this is such a big thing because when you have high basketball IQ, other players will thrive next to you as well. Typically, if you have great basketball IQ, the better your teammates, the better you are. The better you are, the better your teammates are. Typically, dudes with really high basketball IQ find a way to fit in and fit out. That to me is sometimes when I look at dudes who are just very skilled, very dominant, very ball dominant, like Keontae George, like Bryce Sensabaugh. When I look at those dudes, my curiosity is not how well can you do what I think you can already do. My curiosity is how well do you do those things that you didn't do. For Gradey Dick, I wouldn't be impressed at all if he hit 7 threes standing in a corner. It wouldn't impress me at all. I know he can hit 7 threes standing in a corner with his eyes closed, probably blindfolded. That does not matter to me. It honestly wouldn't. There's a lot of things I knew about this dude coming in. I knew that he was an above average rebounder for a guard. I knew that he was a very, very above average shooter. It's all the other stuff. It's the ability to get into the paint. It's the ability to actually finish over long defenders. It's the ability and willingness to drive on a closeout. It's the ability to exploit over help. It's the ability to push. It's the ability to process the game at hyper speed. I mean, this is only going to get better. I mean, he's not even scratching the surface of the type of mind he's going to have for the game. Now, not to mention, you're going to have a great teacher in Darko Rajakovic who's going to be able to work with him. You telling me, look, Devin Booker is not an elite athlete by any means, okay? He's a decent athlete. Gradey is probably capable of that as a max upside. Now, Devin Booker, widely considered a top 10 player in the NBA. Is that Gradey's upside? Yeah. That's crazy to say that. I mean, honestly, like that's crazy. Like a poor man's Devin Booker, like it could happen, yo. Like this dude can, like his size. And again, there's so many things that go into this, okay? If he was 6'6", again, this isn't as impressive because I know the upside. I know the upside that's going to come if you can't get space, if you're not big, right? I watched a lot of Peja Stojakovic when he was younger. When he came into the league, I had already watched like years of him playing over in Europe. I remember Peja very concretely. In fact, my first experience in the NBA of Peja, he was coming off the bench. He was in NBA 2K1 or 2K2. And he was rated like 64 or 62. I still put up 40 with that dude. But I tell you, he had none of this in his game. Like he was also a smart player, but his quickness, burst, just coordination as an athlete was nowhere close to this. Now, he's not quite as big as Peja was. And maybe he'll never be the shooter that Peja was, but I'm sure he'll get close. Like when you start adding the bits and pieces of his game that he's actually shown and you start developing them forward, it is a very impressive player profile for a dude who contributes to winning very soon. So anyway, that is my take on him. Let's talk about the rest of the Raptors. No minutes for Joe Wieskamp. Sucks, right? I mean, in a game like this, where you're struggling to score at times, struggling to defend, would a player like that have helped you? I don't know. But it can't be an encouraging sign that a dude who's fighting for a roster spot couldn't even get minutes. Ron Harper, that shot is still too low, and it is really, really showing. I like some of the initiation stuff. It's pretty cool if they actually want to develop him into some sort of point forward type at the G League level. But right now, Ron Harper Jr. remains very much a hypothetical what if, right? Don't think he's going to help you necessarily. Couldn't help but notice Justin Champagnie have 20 points, 12 rebounds, or 21 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists the other day, and just thought, shoot, like this is why the Raptors Summer League squad is so shit right now. because that's a guy who probably should be on your summer league squad had you not waived him last year. And it would have helped. And Christian Koloko would have helped. And honestly, with the season Precious Chua had last year, I know he's a little bit older and I know he's like 3 years into his NBA career, but I would have liked him to play in summer league. I think he could have gotten something out of it and it would have been good for him. But nevertheless, whatever, the Raptors chose to roll out this team. DJ Hogg has impressed me enough that I was kind of confused that he got DMP CD. I mean, every single team is going to get five games, right? The Raptors are going to, I believe, play their final scheduled game on Friday, and then they'll have one more. They've obviously gone 0-3. Will they go 0-4? Will they go 0-5? I don't think they're going to go 0-5, but geez, I don't remember the last time the Raptors fielded a team this uncompetitive in Summer League. I openly questioned if the point of this roster being as bad as it is just to see if this dude can sink or swim, is to force him into a situation that maybe he hasn't been in for a very long time, which is he's basically like your secondary initiator right now. When Marquise Noel can't get it going, just gives it to him and he's getting it off the dribble. And he's getting past this dude. Like that I am impressed. Like there was a shot, I think, in the previous game as well, where he just kind of took it off the dribble and he's able to shoot. Well, that's the Devin Booker stuff. That's the Jason Tatum stuff. And that was my big question mark coming in. Is he going to be able to do it off the bounce? Because there's a lot of stuff in his Kansas tape where he's taking one dribble and boom. And that's going to count as off the dribble. But it's not genuine. It's one thing when, you know, someone runs at you, you sidestep, okay, it's off the dribble, but it's not the same thing. It's another thing when you are isolating at the top, you're able to push your guy left, turn right, and then, you know, do a turnaround kind of off. Like that's a completely different situation. And when you start talking about a guy with a high release and he's 6'8" and he's a little bit quicker than I realized, like you suddenly start saying like, woof, could this guy be an isolation scorer playmaker? Like, does he have that? Because he's bigger than Gary Trent and he's longer than Gary Trent. And at the same age, he's a much better shooter than Gary Trent. So if Gary Trent can become a very good isolation scorer at the NBA, what can Gradey Dick become? Well, he could become that, probably equivalent defensively. He's got a much higher basketball IQ, and he's a much better passer. And he's a much better rebounder. Like he's probably 2 times the rebounder today. So what do you have? I think you have a couple-time All-Star, man. Like I'm not basing this on summer league numbers. I'm just telling you trajectory. If he stays committed to this, like you have drafted a couple-time All-Star. This is not an Ed Davis situation. Don't get it twisted. This is not a guy who has like years and years before he can be, you know, something. Like this is a guy, it will come quickly. Weight room, right? Weight room, experience, fit. It's gonna come. I have a feeling. I have a very good feeling about this guy. Marquise Noel. Just another game to me. Man. Like he had that really brilliant behind the back pass to Moses Brown, which was like great. But the more he started to press with the basketball, the more the Raptors suffered. Pressed a lot in the beginning, Raptors suffered. Pressed a lot in the end, Raptors suffered. Maybe this is something that will come for him, but he's 24, almost. Like he's almost 24 years old. He has grown man body. Like in terms of just, you look at his shoulders, like you look at the strength, athleticism. Like this is not a guy who just needs weight room reps. He gets the game. He understands the game. There is just, however, a massive vertical limit to how effective you can be when you driving doesn't shift the defense. It's going to be really hard for him to be an NBA player if he can't hit that 3 deep at a really high clip. Like he's good as an athlete. He's not elite as an athlete. Like he's not Nate Robinson. So for him, the only path is the Damon Stoudemire path early in Damon's career, I remember a tape of Damon like just shooting like half court shots. He needs to get deep range, because that is the only place on the court where his size is not a massive hindrance. He needs to be able to get massive size. Sorry, he needs to get massive space against his defender. If he can start being like deadly from 30 feet, that will massively open up his NBA opportunity. Like, he could actually come in. He's a competent ball handler. He's a very good passer. But in order to pass, you have to generate advantages. In order to generate advantages, you need to be a threat to score. This feels like the Scotty Barnes situation all over again, just completely different reasons. In order to get that level of threat to score, there needs to be two things that happen for Marquise Noel. Number one, as the aforementioned, deep range. He needs to be a sniper from about 30 feet. Like, if you leave him, you're dead. Now, that's very hard to do. Very few players are that level of shooter, but he needs to be like significantly above average. And what I mean by significantly above average from that place is 33% is the cutoff. He needs to be 33 to 34% on deep shots that will allow him not only to help his teammates, providing some gravity, it'll also allow him to massively cut out some of the advantages that length can present against him, right? Because if you have to guard him 35 feet from the basket, well, suddenly now he has all this space to operate, and all those angles become a little bit wider. As the angles become wider, this is just physics. As the angles become wider, somewhere along the line, you're going to have like a little bit more of a cushion for the amount of space that you're giving up vertically. So I think that there is a path forward. Like, he's obviously very skilled, and you know, he's obviously very committed to this, right? You don't get to this level as a 5'7" guy if you're not massively committed to working hard. You don't get in shape or as skilled as he does if you haven't put in. Like, I'm positive that if I had to take like every player in the draft cycle of the, I don't know, 90 guys who got two ways and got drafted and stuff, I think that this guy probably would have outworked all of them in the previous 5 years. But at some point, physics are physics, and the type of player he's going to have to be in order to play on an NBA court is, I think, that type of player. The second thing is he's going to have to get deadly on the mid-range pull-up. Like, pocket of space, boom, deadly. So really, it's just shooting. It's all around shooting. I don't think the rim pressure and, you know, all that stuff is going to come. I think once teams just figure out how to stop him at the rim, like, it's going to be curtains on him. Just, I mean, there was a play tonight where he put up a layup and he hit the bottom of the rim. I don't think I've seen that in years, because it just, most guys, when they're going up for a layup, are above or at the rim. So, yeah. So I think the shooting's got to come. Anyways, let's bring on Lane. Again, just a reminder, lines are open. If you want to call, you want to talk about something, come on and have a conversation about what you're seeing in Summer League. All right. Link is in the description. Lane, what's up, man?
Yo, what's up, man? What's up?
Not too much.
I am wondering where the hell everyone's at. Where is everybody? I see OG. I see Dennis. Where's everyone else? You know, it seems like every other team has like vets sitting courtside. I feel like the whole Pistons team was there today. Where's everybody at? I mean, I understand Pascal. I understand that, because I wouldn't want to. I mean, I think he's gone. Honestly, I really do think he's gone. But I wouldn't want to be there anyway if, you know, the team that I've grown up with is not talking about getting rid of me. You know, there's a pride factor that comes into it. I understand that. I understand why he's not there. Where's Precious? Right. Where's Gary? I mean, Yaka was there one day. That's it. You know, like, well, where is everybody? Where are they at? I mean, I see Darko in and out. I don't see anyone else on the coaching staff except for Pat. I mean, where is everybody?
Jama's there. Jama's there.
Yeah, I did see Jama. Where's Bobby? Where's Masai? It felt like last summer they were all just together, you know, courtside, sitting there. Where's everybody at? It's not showing the culture.
In fairness, that didn't work out super well, right? Everybody being together didn't maybe work out super well. Everybody is
understand.
together. They're together in the practice facility, right? They built a practice facility in the hotel ballroom. They invested money into that. Largely, the point of that was to cut down the travel time, because typically in Vegas, teams have to rent out certain like college gyms and stuff.
Mm.
So they've cut out some of the costs there. I would assume that those players are working.
You would hope so. I mean,
I
I
would
don't.
assume so.
You
And I
would.
mean, the skill development work and stuff that needs to be done right now with a lot of the dudes, I'm assuming that, look, there's really one player on that roster right now who's going to play for the main club next year. And that's great.
Yeah.
So it's not quite like the Pistons, because when you're talking about the whole Pistons team being there, the whole Pistons team is basically their summer league squad, right? I don't think it's as uncommon as you're thinking here. There have been several years last year where people will show up once. I would be more concerned if they weren't down in Vegas, but showing up to the game specifically, I think grasping at straws.
Yeah. I
Like
maybe.
OG is there, Precious is
No,
there.
no. I've
You
seen
know,
OG. I think I've seen OG the most, which is a super encouraging sign. Um, I think maybe I'm just thinking in previous years, it even felt like the 2018 summer going into 2019, even right before DeMar was traded, that there was a lot of guys, even in the summer league presence, even with them being unsure if they'd be there,
right?
because hell, our first offer to the Spurs was Lowry, because we wanted to keep DeMar. Lowry was there at summer league, and then we traded DeMar a week after summer league, and DeMar was there too.
Just a
You
couple of
know,
days after, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it just seems like no matter what, every year in, year out, guys have been more seen. And the Raptors have one of the largest social media presences of all the NBA teams. Like, we do open gym for everything. Like, you get off the plane, you have a camera in your face for open gym,
Mhm.
And like it feels like we record everything, and all I've seen so far is guys in and out, where maybe in previous years it was a lot more together. And maybe it's last year because Rico had his runs and he was in the organization, and so he did his runs out there, and so it was a lot easier and more accessible.
Mhm.
But I mean, I don't know.
Well,
Go ahead.
I don't know how I'm going to put this without saying something that I'm going to have to clip out later. Um, I've gotten a gauge on how connected and good the vibes are on this team, and they're very good. Like things are very good behind the scenes. I don't know what's being seen on camera. I don't really know who's showing up to the games, nor who they're showing at the games. I mean, they didn't show Scotty in the crowd until he showed up. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so I mean, there could be guys who are in the back row and they're just not on camera, right? They are down there though. They are working, and everyone is on the same page. That I can tell you. Like in terms
Everyone,
of
Siakam.
Darko, Gary, the conversations have been really positive. Gary, Darko, Scotty, his camp. I don't know about Otto. I haven't heard anything about Otto. So I don't know about Otto and Thad and Pascal. Those are the three guys where I haven't heard much. But everyone else is down there. OG, Dennis, Schroeder, the vibes, right? So everything feels really good around this team right now. Now, I also thought that everything was good last year, but I didn't know who to talk to about it. So I was just trusting social media. Social media, not real life. You know this. You know
Yeah.
this. It's
Oh,
not
for
real
sure.
life. So they went so far last year to show like, oh, how hard everyone's working and, all this stuff. And everyone's posting their summer runs. And, it's just what is it? It's scrimmage. It's glorified scrimmage. That's all it was. The Rico runs did nothing of significance that I can see, other than like create a whole bunch of rumors about why Scotty Barnes wasn't there for one game and was there for the other game. To me, I don't care about the forward facing stuff. I care more about the communication across the board. I care that Scotty and OG are on the same page. I care that Gary and Darko are on the same page. I care that communication and those tough conversations and those, conversations are happening. That's what I care about. I don't care necessarily about this other stuff, but I understand where you're coming from too, where, if you're trying to ease up the fan base about all this culture toxicity, dysfunction you had last year, that it would be helpful to see everybody just kind of in front row giggling and eating popcorn. I get that. I fully get that. It would ease a lot of fears that maybe people have. But if they did it and then behind the scenes there was like a lot of tension and miscommunication and everyone's just kind of off doing their own thing, and I think that would be significantly worse. So yeah.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah. Like, I just want to touch on something you mentioned about Thad.
Sure.
What's the reasoning? You know, like, I thought he was good as waived. I thought he was good as gone. I mean, in your opinion, do you think he's a key piece on this year's team, or is he still around because
I don't see how he fits.
Yeah, I don't see how he fits either.
But, I mean, that'll be up to them. I think it's a trade piece. I think the Raptors have 2 trades in their holster. One is going to involve Thad. The other one's going to involve Pascal, right? You got to round out this roster. This roster doesn't make a lot of sense. I think that the Pascal thing has to fall into place first. Then you can start exploring Thad, Boucher, or anything else on your roster that you want to get rid of.
Yeah.
If the Indiana Pacers rumored package of Neesmith, Nemhard, Smith, Buddy Hield, if that's what you end up getting for Pascal Siakam, well, now you have absolute parity across. Pardon?
You have way too many players. First of all, I mean, the roster can't fit that many.
Correct. That is one. So you probably end up like sending a few things back as well, and maybe having to waive a guy or stretch a guy or something like that. I have no idea, because those guys don't make anywhere near as much money as Pascal Siakam. So,
Right.
like, it's not like you're over the cap or anything like that. You just have a whole bunch of cheaper players. At which point, yeah, technically you could. Yeah, you could think to yourself, shoot, like we probably should have waived Thaddeus Young, but then you also have that contract now on your books that you can absorb something back. The Raptors have an absurd number of expiring contracts and very tradable contracts. If you were to trade Thaddeus Young, and I'm not suggesting we trade Otto, but if you were to trade Thaddeus, Otto, and Chris Boucher, those are 3 guys who can actually like serviceably, play some minutes on a contending team. Maybe that team has a longer term contract that maybe they want to get off of because they have their eyes set on next year's free agency. Well, now you are a great trade partner and you can give them 3 pieces back for 1. I don't know. There's a lot that they can do with this roster. I don't think the roster we're seeing on the court right now or on paper right now, is going to resemble the roster we see on the final day, especially if Pascal is traded. Because when Pascal is traded, you're almost definitely going to get at least 2 players back. More likely, you're going to get 3 players back. So, yeah, I mean, but from what I've understood, the conversations across the board, especially for some of those core guys like Christian Koloko, Jeff Doughton, Dennis Schroeder, OG Anunoby, basically every single person that I really like on this roster, to be honest, has been really positive.
Yeah. I know regardless what's going to happen with Pascal, I'm probably going to be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he's traded, I'd be disappointed. 1, because he's probably my favorite player, to be honest with you. I mean, you know this. I love Pascal.
Mm-hmm.
2, what we're gonna get from him is not gonna be what he's worth. He's tanked his own trade value with saying, I'm not re-signing for whoever trades for me.
Yeah.
2, he's an expiring deal. And 3, when the main 3 trade partners, it sounds like, don't have one guy they'd be willing to trade that I'm really excited about, maybe other than the Hawks. But like, are the Hawks really going to give up AJ Griffin, Hunter, Buffkin, and their 2030 pick for a rental potentially?
I don't know about all 3 of those guys, but I think they can give up at least 2 of those guys.
I
don't know about the pick either. I'm fine with that. Yeah. I talked about it on today's live earlier. I think it was a really good live. It kind of covers the entire Siakam situation, maybe even in a way that you would even appreciate. I think it was pretty fair across the board. It wasn't slanderous. It wasn't diminishing who he is as a player or a person or whatever. But I think it does hit on some notes. But yeah, anyways, I don't want to rehash the whole Pascal thing. I spent like 90 minutes talking about him earlier, but thanks a lot for calling in, man. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, maybe the Raptors, like the front facing stuff will maybe come. I don't know. But I will say one thing. Fred, Pascal, like there is a bit of a leadership transition happening here, right? Like if Pascal is your leader, well, your leader isn't there. If he's not your leader, then, you know, there's a leadership shift happening from, you know, him to OG and Scotty. So the fact that those two guys are down there, the fact that those two guys are encouraging their teammates in practice, the fact that those two guys are, you know, I think that's a good thing. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
All right, man. Cheers.
All right,
Have a good
see ya.
one. See ya. Let's bring on Dell. Dell, what's up?
Yo, can you hear me clear?
Yes, I can.
Fire. Okay. Honestly, as I've been watching a fair few amounts, how do I say that? As I've been watching a few of the summer league games, I was trying to think on a long-term trajectory. It's just not clear to me what we want to do as far as like a path to contention. It's as you say, even like listening through this call, like obviously the roster we have right now is not what the roster is going to be on opening night, or you know, whatever trades or moves we might make through the season as well. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts might be on what that looks like. I'm looking forward to seeing the ball in Scotty's hands way more. I appreciate what Gradey Dick's brought to the team, but I'm even trying to get a beat on what firstly player development is going to look like. Obviously, I'm happy with how Darko's going to be here, and you know how he's planning to shift things around the team from what we had last year. But those are the questions that I have in my mind as far as like what is really what we're going to do. We can look better, but what's going to take us from where we are now to where we're trying to be? That's just not what's clear to me right now.
Time. Time. Yeah, you're going to have to give time. And I know that that's not a very popular thing in this fan base or just in the NBA or maybe even the world in general right now, where we want to rush, you know, everything. This guy's got to be this now or he's never going to be it. Like everything is very do or die. And I think that this is just a new cycle that we're in where increasingly, you know, you sign a guy and then 2 weeks later, he's the blessing on earth. 3 weeks after that, he's the biggest curse, the worst signing ever. 4 weeks later, he's in trade rumors. 5 weeks later, there's a confirmed trade rumor. And, you know, it all happens so fast, right? But when you start to look from the bird's eye perspective on NBA players, generally speaking, the development path is like 4 or 5 years sometimes, right? So that's going to have to happen with Gradey. It's going to have to happen with every player on this team. If Pascal Siakam is traded, they're all shifting up in role. It's going to be a new role, new coach, new system. They could come out 0-7. They could come out 0-10. I have no idea. This season could get away from them so fast.
Right.
Or they could surprise because they're absolutely new and there's no scouting on a Scotty-led offense without Siakam and Van Vliet. They could surprise and jump off to 7-0. I have no idea. The variance is so wild in terms of where it can swing. But I think, as I mentioned in the earlier live, my barometer will be growth. My barometer will be the same as Masai's. I want to see chartable month over month growth. I want to see growth in the right direction. I want to see cohesion. They have invested a ton into development. Every player, every coach that has come into this team from the absolute bottom to the absolute top is an expert at development, with the exception of one coach, I believe. So that comes down to an organizational shift, a reversion, perhaps like a reverting back to what got them here in the first place. I think sometimes when things go badly for people, you know, when you go the wrong way for a little bit, you start to evaluate the path that got you there. You know, you start to say, how do we get where we got to? How can we bring that back? You know, and it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. I think you have some really high-end talent here. Like, I know that Christian Koloko was a 33rd overall pick, but his upside to me is so high. Like the maxed out version of all these players is so good that to not shift focus right now to development would be so insanely stupid.
Right.
Like, because, you know, people think in terms of, okay, well, what if we surrender the 10th overall pick right next year because we're bad and we should just contend? Well, you're surrendering the pick anyway. So at this point, it's just petty. It doesn't matter if you surrender the 10th pick, the 14th pick, the 18th pick, the 22nd pick. Either way, it has nothing to do with anything. The Spurs are not in your conference. You know, they're not in your division. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Yeah, you'll probably feel better about it, but feelings are irrelevant here. You'll feel better if you surrender the 22nd pick, right? Because then it'll make the Jakob Poeltl trade better. How can you make something better that already happened? You know what I mean? Like the pick is gone. It's gone. The only thing that would be a true disaster next year is finishing bottom 5 and keeping that pick. That would be the true disaster.
Wait, then let me ask this question then, just
Sure.
based on what you're saying. As far as like what you're saying, you would judge the team, the front office, Bobby and Masai on. You're saying it would be growth, from what I understand.
Growth, cohesion, togetherness, playing a style of basketball that's conducive to winning, not shooting yourself in the foot. I would also judge them on not playing down or up to their competition, but rather showing up against teams that are
being who they are.
difficult. Like playing well against the Boston Celtics,
Right.
do I really care necessarily? Because teams are always gonna, like, when you're not a star-studded team and you're not a marquee franchise or a legacy franchise, teams don't give you their best shot. What I would like to do is to have this team really competitive in games that they're not supposed to win.
I see. Okay.
So that would be, to me, showing growth. Like if Gradey Dick comes out and he puts up 22 points against Charlotte and then puts up 2 points against the Boston Celtics, that's not as impressive as if he puts up 10 against both. Like I'd much rather, or 11 points against both. That's how I prefer he get his 22 points. So to me, it's like, can we move away from bottom feeding? You ever keep fish?
Yeah, back in the day.
You remember plecos?
Oh, I don't.
The Raptors were basically plecos last year. They were just cleaning up the bottom of the tank, right? That's really what it was. I hope there's a aquarium enthusiast that appreciated that reference. But really, that's just what they were. They were beating up the crap out of the Charlotte Hornets and the Detroit Pistons, rarely showing up or even being competitive in games where they were facing elite competition, or they were competitive in those games, and then bam, fourth quarter comes, that team turns it on. You don't have a second gear to go to, and they just beat you. Or you beat yourself by allowing, Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam to dominate possessions down the stretch. So it's just a matter of, can you come up late? Can you win some of those close games? Like that would be important too. Like if you're in a game, can you actually win it through smart play? There's so many different things, but I think it's one of those things where when you see it, you'll know. When you see the shift, you'll know. And if at the end of the year, that shift in play style and shift in development results in 32 wins, I'm not going to complain. And if it results in 42 wins, I'll be ecstatic because it'll be playoff experience. But the win total doesn't matter as much to me as the play style improving and guys getting better. Yeah.
Okay. Last two things I'd say. The first is, well, maybe just first a comment, then a question. I'm really hoping that this year we can find, as you're saying, a play style, find something that can really re-energize the fan base. Because I'm still watching the games. I'm still in tune with, I guess, Raptors culture, anything that comes with it. But I don't feel the way I did. Even when we lost to was it the Nets, when Lowry put up the shot that got blocked, and then like from that period forward, I felt like the feeling, at least for me in my household, people I'm around, like the feeling behind the team, there just felt like there was something different. And obviously that built until the championship season, even maybe the year after, and in Tampa was a whole thing. But like right now, I feel like that's dead. I'm hoping that can come through what you're describing, because I feel like I'll feel exactly the same, even if we were to win 30 games, something around that. But the play style is really good. The energy is really good. Collectiveness or cohesion within the players is there. That would be, I guess, step one on this path to getting back to where we all hope to be again, contending and such. But I guess maybe the patience is a difficult thing. But that's right. The last question I was gonna ask. We've obviously spoken about what the upside would be as far as if things go well and what we hope to see. But what would disappointment look to you this year? And you spoke about it a little bit, but what could it potentially realistically be if things go wrong?
Cool, man. Thanks for calling in. I'm going to answer your question, and we're just going to let you sit off, yeah?
Gotcha.
Thanks for calling in, man. Appreciate it.
No
worries. Yeah, so to respond to that, what would disappointment look like? I think disappointment would look like another year of stagnation in terms of growth. I think disappointment would be more bottom feeding, right? So it's basically all the things that I said I was looking for those things to happen, more and more of those things not happening. So, you continue to have this culture of selfishness where guys are betting on themselves. You continue to have this culture of not accountability. Let's say, years of absorbing now like terrible leadership, maybe Scotty comes out and he's just like, yo, I just can't with these guys. Yo, it's just terrible. Like, I know he's never going to do that, but that would be terrible for me, right? If the offense continues to, it's one thing to preach 0.5 basketball. It's another thing to actually implement it and break a lot of those old habits, those over dribbling, over surveying, stagnation basket, So to me, the style of basketball I want to see needs to shift. It doesn't matter to me if you win 37, 38 games and you're playing the wrong way. I'd much rather you win 28 games playing the right way. And I'm pretty firm just for the last 12 years on what the right way to play basketball is and what the wrong way to play basketball is. And we can shift when you have a Luka Doncic or a Michael Jordan on your team or Shaquille O'Neal. You can shift your perception of right way to play basketball to fit a superstar. But when you don't have a superstar, the right way to play basketball remains pretty consistent across the board. So yeah, I think disappointment to me would be more of the same old from last year, right? So beating up on bad teams, not showing up against good teams, fourth quarter meltdowns, terrible spacing, kind of dated offensive sets that don't really exist, stagnant ball movement, bad culture, a lack of growth from specifically your key prospects. Who do I identify as key prospects? OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, those two guys, firm first and foremost. That's like, and I'm going to add Precious Achiuwa to that mix. Okay, I'm going to say that's tier 1, top shelf, right? You can obviously say Scotty's a level above in terms of expectations, but to me, those three guys are definitely in the plans to be starters at some point down the line. Christian Coloco, Ron Harper, these guys, Jeff Doughton, I know he's 26 years old, but he's still, in a weird way, a prospect, right? He's still a guy who has that next step to take. So Gary Trent Jr., like that to me are your Gradey Dick, obviously. Gradey Dick, you probably put him on the first level. So those to me, if I see massive improvements throughout the year from Scotty, Gradey, OG, and Precious, I'll be very happy. If you can add Coloco to that mix, I'll be super duper happy. Because again, I am, this channel is often accused of being a Scotty hype channel, and I understand why that is, because he's featured a lot and I've done a lot of videos about him. But if you talk to me privately, how much I really like Christian Coloco. I like him a lot. And it's just certain things about his game. I'm getting there on Gradey as well, right? And OG, obviously. OG's been one of my favorite players in the NBA for years. So, I have a lot of hope for these players. I'm personally very curious, just from an intellectual curiosity perspective, because I've been hyping up a lot of these dudes for a long time, saying that people are in their way. And it feels to me, at least, maybe a little bit, maybe I'm delusional, but it feels to me like the Raptors are doing what I've been wanting them to do for a year and a half, what I've been pleading on this channel for them to do for over 2 years now on Facebook groups and message boards. And it feels like there's a moment where I'm going to be like, okay, Rob, you're known as the guy who's been asking for this Scotty OG centric, focus going forward. You're the guy who's been asking for them to get rid of Fred VanVleet. You're the one who's been asking them to, in a sense, trade Pascal Siakam on. You're the one who's been pushing for this egalitarian ball movement stuff. So if this flops, you know what I mean? You feel to look very stupid, because your hypothesis obviously is that Scotty will excel as a leader. If he does not excel as a leader, you stand to look mighty foolish, because you've, gone from a team that won 41 games to a team that won, 14 games or something like that, and if the community, and again, the narrative on our side is that Scotty's not in the wrong here, but if the dysfunction continues, if Thad and Pascal and Fred are gone and the dysfunction continues and there's infighting, well, now you have to, when you look at this from a mathematical perspective, you're isolating variables, right? So if you get rid of something and the problem consistently keeps happening, well, then now you have to maybe start entertaining the possibility that maybe you didn't get rid of the problem. Maybe those guys weren't the problem. It validates so much. There's so much on the line from just a personal pride, right? These players that are remaining here, They rebelled against this. They rebelled against the way we played last year. They rebelled against the leadership. So if you remove the leadership and then you don't thrive, you don't show that you're getting better, well, now you just, in a weird way, proving that those people having an issue with you was true. That those people going out and Fred calling the younger teammates out, saying they don't know how to play basketball, they don't know how to play winning, they don't know how to win yet, etc. They need to no babies allowed. All the quotes. My God, I'll play them on loop. I just want to get past the Fred VanVleet stuff, but it gives credence. It gives credence to all those ideas. It validates everything that he said. Double so if he goes and like wins in Houston. There's, from a personal pride perspective, there's a lot on the line here. So yeah, I mean, a long-winded way of saying, if the Raptors continue to play abhorrent, terrible looking basketball and continue to lose and no one grows, I'll call it a massive failure. Yes. Let's bring on Damian. Damian, what's going on, man?
Hello, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, well, thank you. So yeah, obviously I'm in Australia, so my information is pretty limited in terms of NBA stuff. So appreciate you putting out your deep stuff regularly. It's been great for me as a Raptors fan.
Appreciate it.
Where do you actually feel like you're sitting right now in terms of confidence in the organization with, the next step? And you're just saying about removing the cancerous pieces within the organization that didn't seem to be helping us.
Right. I understand where you're coming from on that. And I understand a lot of people are pretty low on the Raptors right now. The sentiment is that you're about to lose Pascal Siakam for maybe 40 cents, 50 cents on the dollar. You lost Fred VanVleet for nothing, traded away the future for Jakob Poeltl. It looks like there's an avalanche coming at this fan base, and they're not used to it because, all those gems that you were developing and finding just aren't being developed or found anymore. But I think that something is worth saying here. The Raptors had a track record for development. Justin Champagnie chose to come here, right? They don't have that development track record right now. There's a lot of guys who've complained. There's a lot of vibes that have been off. This team chemistry, culture stuff is now widespread across the NBA that this is what was happening with the Raptors locker room. This is not a good look, right? So maybe there was an undrafted guy who would have pushed his way to Toronto 3 years ago, but didn't this year. And that's a guy that you don't find. So I think that just looking at this from an organizational perspective, and I'm going to use everything that I have gleaned from working in organizations, big organizations. I'm going to take everything that I've gleaned from being a film director, everything I've taken from running Pendants for 6 years now, and just say sometimes the right decision is going to look really stupid for about 10 minutes. And I think that's where the Raptors are right now. They're pivoting, they're changing, and they're going to take some loss right now. They're going to take some whips. They're going to take some beatings on ESPN. They're going to take some criticism from this fan base. But I would say that as someone who has been calling these problems out for the last year and a half, I'm just really happy to see this team addressing them in a very loud way. It takes a lot to change your mind. When you're so dead set on going one way, you're so invested in certain guys, it takes a lot to then pivot away from those guys and say, no, we this is wrong. We have to change. We have to adapt. So I appreciate their adaptability. I understand people are frustrated with their execution, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm definitely not pessimistic about where we're headed. As you said, we've still got our core group of players that we can develop and turn into whatever they can be.
Mm-hmm.
And having Scotty Barnes at the helm of that with his just general enthusiasm and appreciation for just being where he is, wanting to make the team better. I think, it's having a new coach in that can recognise that within Scotty as well and just build that good dynamic back in, whether it's, 100% focused around all youth or a good balance of, what we have. I'm honestly, as I said, I've only seen word that Pascal is being shipped around, but I've also only seen word of him saying that he's not happy to sign for any other team other than the Raptors. So that to me says that he's on board with, where the organization's heading. And yeah, I just don't know how much to read into all the, as I said, the media.
I think you will also appreciate the previous live if you haven't watched it. I think I covered a little bit of this. I don't think he's overly thrilled about where the organization is going, to be honest with you. I think it's very frustrating. I empathize if you were the best player on a team and your new coach barely addresses you, barely talks about you in public settings, mainly is talking about a guy who's 8 years younger than you and had a pretty much definitely worse season than you last year, being the guy that they're building around. Yeah. I mean, pride kicks in. Like, what am I, chopped liver? I get it. So him not being in Vegas, it's not everything. It's not something huge, but it is something. Him being in trade rumors right now, him not taking the extension that they offered, everything that I covered in the last live still applies, 5 hours later. Yeah, I think they're headed for a messy divorce. I just hope it's not super messy because he means a lot to this franchise. Like, he's top 10 in almost every single category. He's won a championship here. I would just hope that they're able to work out something with him where whether he's staying or going, that it can be amicable.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'll be following him whether he stays or leaves Toronto because, as I said, I can see what he's brought to the team and his value, and it definitely sucks to not have that full appreciation shown by the organization back to you. But understanding that it is a business at the end of the day, and he's one of thousands of players in the league that get treated in similar ways. It hurts, but what can you do more than just put yourself out there and take whatever comes your way? So
Yeah,
definitely hope him all the best wherever he lands because he's a phenomenal player and will continue to be.
it's just sort of been miscast as a first option, I think. Maybe overloaded. Maybe he loaded himself. Maybe Nick Nurse decided he has people in his ear telling him he can be a top 5 player in the NBA. Obviously, that's what he's pushing towards. I don't see it. And if you think that much of yourself, if that's your goal, then obviously you want your compensation to match that. There's obviously people in his camp that believe he's worth the supermax, that he should get out and try to get it. And I just don't want to see what this team's going to look like if he goes outside the team dynamic trying to chase the supermax without Fred VanVleet on the team, because the talent quotient is down. His effectiveness will be limited. The spacing that he had last year is going to be even worse this year, frankly. It's not a good situation in my opinion. I personally would like to see him just move on. Hope the Raptors get something really good back for him, or decent competitive value back for him, given that he's an expiring contract. And then hopefully he can chase all NBA and get his bag somewhere else. I'll be happy for him, just like I'm, somewhat happy for Fred VanVleet getting paid, taking care of his family. It's awesome. Just I don't want it on the Raptors. I don't want to be paying him $60 million, man. I'm not pocket counting or anything like that. I just don't want to be following a team where 4 years from now, you got Pascal Siakam making $60 million, $61 million. It's just it's not sustainable. It's not that level of player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no, if we just look to aim to build our roster to make it look more like the Denver Nuggets and have that, cohesion and just, core focus.
I think, it's really hard to build the Denver Nuggets without Nikola Jokic. But yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, look, they're replenishing their talent base. If you buy Scotty being a top 10 player in the NBA someday, maybe he doesn't quite hit Jokic highs, but that's a high that very few players who've ever touched a basketball can even dream of. So, Scotty, OG, and Gradey, does that future with Precious, does it not resemble a little bit of Jamal Murray? Okay, fine. You don't have quite the initiator, there in Jamal Murray, but like a core of Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray. You can argue their core is more talented across the board at every single position, but you got to start somewhere, right? And Nikola Jokic started as a second-round pick, right? So it can build. There is a cohesion here. The skill work has to come a really long way, but yeah. Anyways, man, thanks a lot for calling in. What time is it in Australia right now?
3:30 in the afternoon.
Amazing.
Thursday afternoon.
It's 1:30 in the morning here. Yeah. All right, man. Cheers. Have a good one.
Thank you. Yeah.
My pleasure. Okay. We got 2 more calls. We got Sina and we got Vin. Sina, man, what's up?
How's it going, man? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. I actually I was actually gonna tell you I saw your live on draft day, and I saw I remember like the reaction from the Gradey Dicks and everything, and I just want to know like what do you think about him now from like his play and everything?
Well, my reaction was basically I just put my head down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was very high on Jordan Hawkins, and I
Yeah.
remain very high on Jordan Hawkins.
Yeah.
The measurements, though, do concern me about maximum level upside for a player that size. I think Jordan's a better player right now, but some of the stuff that I've seen from Gradey is just not stuff that I had seen of him in the 5 games that I watched. It's just not. It wasn't there. And 2 of the games that I watched, he really struggled to get space. Like he was just like he was out. Like I don't know. Like I don't know what happened in those games, but I can tell you he's had a game like that already in summer league where he just looks like he can't hold the ball, like he can't dribble, he can't do anything, right?
Right.
And so if that becomes the basis of 1 of 5 games that you've watched the guy, you're gonna have a very different opinion. But since he's been drafted, I went back, I watched high school tape, I watched more games from Kansas, and every game I watched, I was like, oh, I didn't know he could do that. Oh shoot, he can do that. Oh gosh, that's not a big issue. So I fully get it. And yeah, like, I mean, I think when I did my draft grades video, I think I gave the Raptors a B. I give him like a solid A now, like an A- to B+. Like, again, the more I watch of him, the more I've liked him.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. The team's future is like, I'm pretty optimistic about the future, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like we got Scotty, we got OG, we got Gary coming back. Like Precious is still here. Like Christian Coloco. Like we have a solid like core. I think like a young core in the works. Like regardless if Siakam is not on the team or not. Like I'm pretty high on this team. Like I think we could do some big things in the next couple of years. It's just a matter of fact of like, can we keep everybody like together? But I mean, that's obviously not up to us. It's up to the organization, right? But I mean, like I saw all the trade proposals like from like with the Hawks and like the Pacers and stuff. They're not great, but it's also they're not terrible at the same time. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint where Siakam's like gonna go if he gets traded. Like, cause I didn't see Masai and Bobby wanting to trade him, but like I agree with your last like analysis. Like let him go do his thing. Let him go get his all NBA somewhere else. Let him get his bag. Same as Fred. You know what I mean? Like, you know, because I didn't want to see Fred VanVleet come back, to be honest. And like, fuck, 43 million is just absurd. But I mean,
yeah,
I think regardless if Siakam's on a team or not, like, and like building around Scotty and OG, like I think that's like ultimately what I would like to see, me personally. But
you want to build around Siakam and OG, you said?
No, sorry, OG and Barnes, my bad.
Yeah, well, I think that's I think you'll enjoy the next season, man. Thanks a lot for calling in, man. Appreciate it.
No worries. Absolutely.
Cheers. Vance, what's going on, man?
What's going on, buddy? How are you doing?
I'm good. How goes?
So, I'm okay. You're
walking home?
I'm walking. I do this thing in the summertime. I go on late night walks, sort of clear my mind, listen to podcasts. You know, learn music. Sometimes I write while I'm walking, which is kind of
cool. That's really cool. I should do that. I have a dog too, so I got a companion to do my late night walks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's some philosopher said no great idea has ever come while sitting in a chair or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. It's just like I'm constantly, when I'm on the phone with somebody, I'm constantly pacing back and forth, and so walking helps.
Do you meditate?
This is my form of it, right? I sort of zone out. Sometimes I don't even put anything on, no podcast, no music or anything like that. I just like, it's my form of meditation. It's not like static, seated in one spot, going om and stuff like that. But it's helpful for me. It helps me clear my mind, and especially good before bed.
If I could tell you the number of times, like my girlfriend meditates twice a day, right? So she's
nice.
like, she does this 30 minutes, of silence on the bed. If I could just tell you like the number of times that I have barged in full energy and just been like, you will not believe what Fred VanVleet just said. It's totally opposite vibes, right?
Is she completely stone-faced, or does she say, yo, I'm fucking meditating here?
I say in those moments, the meditation helps. It helps her to react in a good way to that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I've listened to a few different across a couple different platforms today throughout the day, and I'll tell you, man, the YouTube aggregators, like the Raptor aggregators on YouTube, Ben Rogers, and the other guy who does amateur hour sports, I can't remember what his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are fucking livid.
About what?
About what's transpiring with Pascal, and the fact that they may not get, like, they wouldn't even. And sorry, I agree with Ben Rogers on this one. They're saying that like Indiana's not even offering up Nembhard. In which case you're just like, oh, okay. If you're not even giving up,
that's not what I've heard.
No, man. Okay, so I said this to you over text. If we can get a Nembhard and Buddy package, I'm over the moon with that.
You're over the moon. I think you're overrating Andrew Nembhard. Like, I think he's good, but he's not like the best player you get back in a. I mean, I understand Buddy Hield's better, but to me, that's not enough. And I mean, Andrew Nembhard is like. I mean, he flashed some incredible potential last year, but like to me, he's still an older guy, man.
So I'm also saying like, throwing a pick, like flesh out the trade to make it like balanced.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same way, like I can't remember when you put this down or if I read it in an Instagram post of yours or something, but like something, I'm paraphrasing, something along the lines of, while he might be the best player, he's not necessarily the best, or like a top 50 player may not be as good as a top 75 asset. That's something along those lines.
Yeah.
I think down the line.
I what I said was you can trade the wrong top 30 player for the right top 75 player and get better.
There you go.
Like if I'm going to show you this. Hang on one sec. Maybe I'll be able to share my screen and show you this. Okay, so this is Andrew Nembhard at age 22 or 23 in terms of his do you see this? Why am I not showing this? Hang on. Yeah, so there you go. Right? So I mean, this is not exactly screaming to me future superstar here. I understand the highs were super high, right? Like he was amazing, but just look at the overall analytical profile of it. Can you see it, or is your phone?
I'm zooming in on the screen here, so I'm seeing as high as. Oh yeah, okay. So it's true shooting. Yeah,
its true shooting was terrible, right? Free throw attempt rate was really high, but he didn't shoot the ball well. He didn't get to the line very well. He doesn't rebound at all, like at all.
Right.
Despite having a couple of really big rebounding games, he had the ball a lot in his hands. His passer rating was great, so he's a really good passer. But there is a reason why this guy went in the second round, right? I mean, and to me, he's not in the conversation as like you look at a guy like Herb Jones, right? Who is another guy who went in the second round. Like that to me, Herb Jones on day one, I'm like, holy, this is a starter in the NBA. Andrew Nembhard to me is like he might be a starter at some point. Like I understand why people like him a lot because the highs were so high and the lows were so low with this dude, right? Like if I flashed his splits, like I think you would be like pretty shocked. So I just don't think he's not on the level of AJ Griffin to me, man. He's not.
Yeah, no, I'm not like sorry. If an AJ Griffin and DeAndre Hunter package is available, I think that's a decent haul for Pascal, like plus other stuff, a pick here and there, whatever.
I don't. First of all, like this DeAndre Hunter thing, like I don't think DeAndre Hunter is a very good player. Like he's not worth. Like I asked yesterday on Twitter Spaces, they had a whole bunch of Atlanta Hawks fans, and I was talking to those dudes, right? And we were giving our takes on the roster and what we would want from Atlanta and what Atlanta would want from the Raptors, etc. Why Pascal doesn't fit, does fit, etc. What he brings, how he fits. And they were just talking up DeAndre Hunter, and I'm just like, he is not him, dude. Like, and I asked a very serious question. I said, what is the gap between DeAndre Hunter and Jalen McDaniels? Be honest. And like they were just like, well, he's better. And I'm like, yeah, but how much better? And that's exactly, I think, the mic drop moment, because he is like, he's not twice the player Jalen McDaniels is at all. Like to me, he doesn't fit with this team. And he's on a deal which pays him $90 million across 4 years, and he's 25 years old. By 25, typically for players who've played, AAU, played, high school basketball, whatever, you kind of know what you have in a player.
Right.
He's played with elite shooting around him and Trae Young, Bogdanovich, etc. He hasn't had like an overall positive impact in his career, and he got rewarded $90 million. I mean, you can argue this is botched development, but I necessarily don't want to be taking on a prospect who's 25 years old with that type of money owed to him. So I consider him a negative asset at this point.
Well, in his defense on that Atlanta team, I will give him this. He's like
the best defender on that team.
Yeah, there's not very many guys playing.
Here's something wild for you. He's 57th percentile in versatility. OG is 99th. Scotty's 100th. So if you're talking about player types we do not need on this team, DeAndre Hunter is a player you don't need on this team. Buddy Hield, on the other hand, is a player you would really, really benefit from having on this team. Look, there's no 100%. Benefit to being bad this year. So if you're taking a swing at a younger player, I want a younger player who actually has a chance not only to help you win this year, but help you win next year and the year after that. Like I want an asset. And so I'm looking at guys like that have major boom potential, right? Like if you put him one step up, he doesn't have major boom potential. He's had, opportunities. He's flubbed them. There have been games where Trae Young has missed. I've watched enough Atlanta Hawks games to tell you confidently he's not good. Like, I don't say he's not good. He's obviously one of the top 150 players in the NBA, but he's not like a top 100 player in the NBA, and he's definitely being paid like he is.
I mean, I honestly don't think that we're going to get anyone back, or like there's going to be no offers for anyone who has that boom potential back.
But we're okay. Like this Vince, this is what happens when you listen to too much of that stuff that you were talking about. This is exactly what happens. Okay. And I'm not naming any names, but the reality is Pascal Siakam is still widely seen as a top 30 player by almost every general manager in the NBA. Okay. He's not seen as an MVP candidate. He's not seen as a number one guy. But if you have a number one guy, or if you have a really solid number two, and you can, maybe pair this guy with him, I mean, shit, like Indiana, 100%. You're telling me Indiana is holding off of Andrew Nembhard? Then there's no conversation to be had if they're holding off of Andrew Nembhard, because the two sides are too far. If you're telling me, okay, Atlanta only offered AJ Griffin and DeAndre Hunter, there would be no conversation. There would be no negotiation. There would be nothing. They would just hold on to Siakam, and they would just hold on to him because it's just not worth it. So I understand that there's a propensity for teams to lowball early in the stage, but as teams, as the offseason continues, as teams become more desperate, obviously there's another thing that needs to happen right now is that there's Damian Lillard and James Harden.
Right.
And neither of them have been traded. and both of them have asked out. So the question then becomes, do those two shoes need to drop? Because you don't know if the same team that is trying to get Pascal Siakam is also trying to get one of those two guys, right? So maybe they're not feeling, you know what I mean?
I don't think they necessarily have to drop. I don't think there's any realm of possibility that whoever gets either one of those guys also gets Pascal.
I'm not saying also gets. I'm saying what if the landscape in the NBA changes once those two moves get done, right? Because suddenly the teams that get those two guys are in a completely different place, right? If you are a contending team that is trading young players away for a James Harden, Well, now you are one Pascal Siakam away from possibly unlocking your
I
championship odds.
sure,
If you
sure.
if you're if you look at I'm not saying the Hawks, sorry, the Heat are going to get Damian Lillard, but if the Heat did get Damian Lillard, right?
Right.
Like, okay,
Right.
their asset base would be completely depleted. But now maybe teams in their division are now looking differently at that team. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, these are two very major dominoes that need to fall, and the ripple effects will be felt across the league. They will not only be felt by the Raptors to some extent, despite the fact that the Raptors are not a contending team, but they'll also be felt by the Indiana Pacers, et cetera, right? So I just think, and look, depending on what Philly gets back for James Harden, it may embolden a team like Indiana or Atlanta to say, oh my God, there's a real chance at number 3. Like, we could be competitive. You know what I mean?
Guess it is. I guess it also is possible that that whatever Philly gets for Harden, they could use to route to Toronto to get Pascal. Like, that Nurse would love to have Pascal on the team, and of the big men, I'd say aside from Jokic and maybe Miles Turner, like, Embiid is the perfect big to put beside Pascal, right?
Yeah, don't be surprised if this turns into a 3-way. Whether it involves Harden, whether it involves Dame, like, those are major contracts being shifted. So if the Raptors become the 3rd team in a Damian Lillard trade or a James Harden trade, I mean, the contracts fit. Like, Harden's, I think, around 30 million, Dame's like north of 40, like Pascal's at about 35, 37, whatever, 38. So he's kind of in that realm. So yeah, if the Portland Trailblazers are getting, something back, or if the Miami Heat are getting something back, or whoever, the Philadelphia 76ers are getting back a package for Harden that they don't like, they can reroute that package to us and they can get Pascal Siakam. You know what I mean? So
unfortunately,
there is
I don't think Max.
Hmm?
Unfortunately, I don't think Maxey would be included, which is
I very much doubt he will be included. If James Harden is going out, well, like, what do you even have? But like Tobias Harris, and Maxey, I don't know. Look, there is no shortage of teams in the league that could emerge, later as something. Their organization shifts focus. They see something in summer league from a first year player who's going into a second year. They're like, oh, we're closer to contention. You look at a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder with their boatload of draft picks and young players, and you ask yourself, would you take a package of 5 picks and contracts back for Pascal Siakam? Happily. And they have more than enough to give you, right? The only question then becomes is, do they see him as a fit there? And frankly, Pascal Siakam, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, Chet Holmgren, like, my God, the fact that this is not already done to me is shocking. Like, they should do this. They're the type of team that could do this. The question then becomes, well, is he sabotaging his own trade value by refusing to sign an extension, right? Because he doesn't want to play in Oklahoma and he doesn't want to play in Portland. Now, listen to how confusing the reporting is, right? I believe Mark Stein just reported that the Raptors were not willing to move Pascal Siakam for the number 3 pick. Okay.
That's stupid. That's
okay,
dumb.
But it was reported that the Raptors were not willing to move OG or Pascal for the number 3 pick, and the Pelicans were not willing to move Zion. Now, that's an actual report by a real NBA beat writer or real NBA analyst who is trusted.
Right.
And at the same time, you're telling me that Pascal Siakam can't fetch you Andrew Nembhard. So who's lying and who's not? You know what I mean? It's very difficult to say what's true and what's not. I will tell you, however, that when I went on my Pascal is not an MVP guy, Pascal is not that great rant, it's based on the fact that I have talked to scouts and people who cover this league who just don't rate him that way. And it's good to get outside the Toronto echo chamber sometimes. Because, ideas sort of just ping pong too much. We all listen a little bit too much to Matt and Jack, and it just becomes like a bit of a circle jerk. So when you talk to other teams, you talk to other scouts, you understand how they view him. Therefore, what information are they feeding back? What is the consensus? Obviously, if they massively, misjudge him, and you see 7-8 people doing that, you're just like, okay, like, these guys, you know what I mean? So I have always gotten the feeling back that he's a top 30 guy for most people, top 25, top 20 fringe, top 30. So when a player like that becomes available, even if it is a rental, there's always going to be multiple picks dangled. It's just the upside is quite huge. The only question then becomes for that team is, does he fit with what we're trying to do? Does it help us compete? Because one year compete window, when the league is wide open right now, it's never been more wide open right now. You could tell me 8 different teams are winning a championship next year, I'd probably believe you. It's just very the parity. So adding a Pascal Siakam, especially if what you're giving up is a whole bunch of hypothetical future value, like in young players and prospects and draft picks that are not going to help you this year, you're just adding outright, Pascal Siakam. I heard the most absurd thing during today's Summer League coverage. You would not believe it. Did you hear this? That okay, so when Troy Weaver was on, they were looking at the Pistons record last year of 17 wins, and they were like, well, they were missing Cade. That's at least 17 wins. So if they had Cade, they would have had 34 wins.
What? Sorry, Troy, the GM of that team said that?
No, the GM didn't say that. The analyst who was covering, the Summer League, and he said that, when he was looking at their record after Troy Weaver left, he was just like, well, this is a really bad thing for, Pistons fans. They're looking at the record, which was 41-41 like 5 years ago, and then they've had like 4 abysmal seasons since, and it's just like 17 wins, 20 wins, et cetera, and they're just like, well, they had 17 wins last year, but if they had Cade, it would have been like, I was like, bro, like Cade Cunningham has negative 0.7 win shares in his career so far. How are you ascribing
17?
Bro, like Giannis Antetokounmpo cannot add 17 wins to that team right now. I mean, he could. Giannis and Jokic and those guys, they can add that level, but apart from that, nobody could have added 17 wins to the Pistons last year. These guys are fucking crazy. So that's where I'm seeing like Siakam is like he's a floor raiser. I think it'll take a general manager out there who believes he's also a ceiling raiser.
Sure.
I think he's a massive upgrade over most power forwards in the NBA.
Oh man, okay. So when I do listen to those to the Toronto aggregators, I listen from a removed perspective. I'm not in there with them, right? I'm just like I'm definitely like not like you're right, like not at all. I'm more like, bro,
this is what's happening.
You have to see things from a far more removed, more NBA-centric perspective as opposed to a Raptor-centric perspective, right? And they're like you said, that they're getting caught up in their own echo chamber. That's why. And just to quickly harken back to the point we were just talking about with the proposed Atlanta and Indiana trade, I think while doing it like the DeAndre Hunter package, what like the asset back would not even be Hunter for me. It would be AJ Griffin. Like that's
not enough. That's not enough. You're taking a negative contract back, in my opinion. Some people in this chat saying DeAndre Hunter is great. Go watch him. Seriously, just go watch him play basketball.
Sure,
he's not that great. So to me, it's like you're taking back a negative asset. It adds a player that does not fit on your roster. So to me, this is like if you said, hey, you have a trade player exception for $20 million. Do you want to take DeAndre Hunter on? I say no. So that to me, his value is less than a traded player exception for me. And I hope that Masai Ujiri can see it that way too. So to me, you're taking on a negative asset to get AJ Griffin. This is like the lost trade of lost trades. You have to get back Onyeka and AJ for me to even look at that trade. You have to get back both of them, or you have to get Kobe Buffkin and Onyeka, or you have to get 2 future picks and AJ. Like it cannot just be that. If that was the trade that was being offered, the Raptors hang up so fast.
Right.
Like AJ Griffin is good. He's not Kobe Bryant. Like let's relax here. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And Vlade Divac, when he was traded for Kobe, I know I'm talking about a trade that happened in 1996, but Pascal Siakam right now is better than Vlade Divac was back then. So
sure.
You should be able to get like a high level lottery pick. Like, the value really should be like something like Dyson Daniels and stuff like that should be the value. Now, is that the value? I have no idea.
I'm hoping New Orleans or like, I'm hoping for the NBA that Zion comes back and he's actually strong. He doesn't get hurt for an entire season. And that New Orleans actually sees what they have. And then they examine the landscape and be like, okay, let's put CJ and Pascal and fucking Ingram and Zion together. Come on, let's go. That's a fucking squad right there.
Is it?
Right, and then I think so. Like they can all.
It's cap hell for a small team, man. It's a small market
so.
team.
guess
They have
so.
Herb
That's
Jones. They have Dyson. They have Trey Murphy. They have the assets. Like they have the assets for the OG trade if they wanted it.
Oh yeah. They'd probably go after OG before Pascal, but Pascal's the guy that's got to go. So maybe Memphis. I don't. Can you do like how would Memphis look with Ja, Bane, Marcus Smart, Pascal, and Triple J?
What are you getting back if they're giving up all that? I mean, if they're not giving up that, what are you getting back? You're getting back Kenny Lofton Jr.
So,
what are you getting?
Hold on. No, who they got? It's like a Zaire Williams. No, who they got? They got that big tankish guy. They have two tankish guys. What are their names? Fuck, they're eluding me right now. The guy that played like he started center for them in the playoffs because Steven Adams was hurt. You know who I'm talking about? He's a beast.
Santi Aldama?
No. He's the guy's name is eluding me right now.
Oh shoot, I know who you're talking about. He's a bit of an undersized center, and I'm forgetting his name as well.
You know who I'm talking about. It's kind of balding.
Yes, I do know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so like guys like that plus draft capital, right? Like a bunch of draft capital because that's what they've got, right? That's what you hope for from them. I would definitely like to get. I would almost so in the same position that the Raptors were in when they traded for Kawhi Leonard. The team had maxed out.
You're talking about Xavier Tillman, right?
Xavier Tillman, yeah, that's right.
That's not enough, man.
No, for sure. They would if it was Memphis, they would have to throw in a lot of draft capital, like a lot, right? Like more so than another team coming with actual players, actual talent.
Let's actually think about this. Okay, so Xavier Tillman, that's $2 million. Zaire Williams, that's $4.5 million. Then you got to probably add Luke Kennard into this mix for $14.5 million. And you're getting Steven Adams back.
Is Kennard even on that team anymore?
I think he is. Isn't he?
Oh, okay.
According to ESPN, maybe. He is.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, shoot, like what is the value here? You're getting 4 players back, and none of them are swinging it for me. So I just don't get it.
Yeah, I'm spitballing here, man. I'm trying to come up with someone who is in that in the Chicago. Sorry, I started to make the point earlier. In the same spot that the Raptors were in when they traded for Kawhi. They had maxed out the ability of that team. So it was a no-brainer for them. Here you go. Here's our best player in exchange for a better player.
Right.
And a young piece and a draft pick that turned into Keldon Johnson. Right? Like that's a decent haul for Kawhi on an expiring. So I feel like we need something like that, just a lightened version of that, because obviously Pascal is not Kawhi, right? But he's
which of these players that you just suggested strike you as good as Jakob Poeltl or DeMar DeRozan? Like they're not even close.
On Memphis, nobody. But I'm trying to think of like the team. So like Chicago, I feel like they're kind of maxed out with where they're at.
What would you, I already know your answer to this question before I'm asking, but I just want to get this on record. Pascal Siakam for Zach LaVine. Who says no?
I'm not saying no to that.
I know.
I
know you.
I know. I'm like, I don't.
100% eye test, dude. He does not care about winning. He just wants to see the dunks and the dribbles and the shots. I get it.
Come on. No,
per the eye test, Zach LaVine just feels like a great basketball player. But how do you account for the lack of success in the playoffs? How do you account for the lack? I mean, he's gotten so efficient, right?
Yeah,
I can see it.
Saying. That's what look at the teams he's had around him. He's never both in Minnesota and in Chicago.
Okay, but
who's he had to play with? Like
DeMar?
I mean,
Lonzo?
and they were like kind of crushing it when they were actually healthy and playing together.
He's a guy
Right?
who's paid like the guy. It's the same situation as Siakam. Now, I'd rather pay Siakam than pay Zach LaVine. And it's almost the same contract. It's a max contract.
I think
the only thing that you can say with Zach LaVine is the fit next to Scotty is just so much more seamless.
That's right.
But okay,
that's
so
right. And
so who's playing power forward? Okay, so let's say Zach LaVine is part of your future now. You trade for him. So what? OG's a 4 now. I mean, you're kind of taking away a little bit of the advantage that you have your supersized lineup. I mean, do you realize what the Raptors have potentially on the line here if they can actually exchange Siakam for a big who rebounds well? You have a team that could potentially very soon, maybe as early as the year after next, have Precious Achiuwa, right? Some center that's not Jakob Poeltl, but is like bursty and quick and whatever. Maybe Christian Koloko. Who knows?
Right.
OG Anunoby, Gradey Dick, and Scotty Barnes. You are building the greatest rebounding team in NBA history right now. You realize that?
Sure.
Like Scotty is probably like he's so above average as a guard, as a rebounder. He's almost above average. He's above average for a wing. So obviously he's well above average as a guard, a rebounder.
Sure.
Like the success that the Raptors had when Fred was out is largely due to how much they could spam the glass. Precious Achiuwa is one of the best rebounders in the NBA. Jakob Poeltl is one of the best rebounders in the NBA. If you could replace Jakob Poeltl at some point, maybe even in this trade, long term, if you can get the long term replacement for Jakob Poeltl at center, either through Christian Koloko development or in this trade, then I think long term you have the makings, and especially if that player can shoot. My God, especially if that player can shoot. One player that sort of fits that mold, but maybe is not as good as you would like him to be, is Jalen Smith from Indiana.
Oh,
you're saying oof, but he's a really good rebounder. He's an incredible offensive rebounder. He's an evolving shooter, and he's 23 years old. And you're telling me like that type of player, if he pops, and again, there's a big if there, but he is a former lottery pick. There's obviously someone who thought he was worth that, and I'm firm on my let's not always have this bias towards guys who win the lottery or whatever, but I think this is a guy that makes a little bit of sense from a roster build perspective. He is a stretch big. He didn't shoot very well last year. Maybe you can fix that. I mean, if Jalen Smith can get to a point where he shoots 37% from 3, well, you have your 5, and he's a shot blocker too. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just looking at the idea here. Like, to me, it's like a player like DeAndre Hunter just absolutely makes zero sense. It's just, you're going to be small now. Like, you're going to go from being supersized to being average size because you bring on a guy who is 6'7". Yeah, he has a wingspan or whatever, but he's not playing 4. He'd be undersized 4 or an average size or plus size 3, which makes OG your undersized 4. It's just, I don't want to put OG at the 4. I want to keep OG at the 3, and I want to find a 4, who's a little bit better and further along than Precious Achiuwa to replace Pascal Siakam in this deal. And maybe that player is Onyeka Okongwu.
Maybe.
I mean, long term, if Christian Koloko can develop as a shooter and Precious Achiuwa can develop as a shooter, can you imagine a 3-man big man unit of Christian Koloko, Onyeka Okongwu, and Precious Achiuwa? I don't care who starts, who doesn't, but imagine that because 2 of those guys can really shoot. Like, I'm not saying really shoot as in consistently, but they have the shooting touch to potentially fill that in. I'm just looking at this from like a 3-4 year down the line perspective. It's like, what are the Raptors really lacking? Elite creation at the guard position, downhill gravity. So guys like Kobe Buffkin make a lot of sense.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
Movement shooters, AJ Griffin. Elite rim rolling, defensive big who can play right now on Onyeka Okongwu. So it's like I'm looking at like the Atlanta. Someone saying that lineup sounds dreadful. I mean, does it though? I mean, if Gradey and like if Scotty improves a little bit as a shooter, like let's just say he progresses reasonably. Gradey is a movement shooter who can create off the dribble. OG Anunoby is a shooter who can post up big. Precious Achiuwa is a guy who can space the court. All of these guys can defend. My God, like what are you talking about? It sounds awful. I think it sounds like a dream come true if you're understanding, how much that lineup would kill the glass. Like you'd be able to spam offensive rebounds. Like you would, oh my God. Like, I mean, you'd be long, you'd be athletic, you'd be blocking shots everywhere. My God, it'd be crazy. You know, you'd be a defensive and rebounding machine. If you could shoot even reasonably, everything that the Raptors tried to do last year about trying to win the possessions battle, that lineup would win the possessions battle without even trying to.
Right. Well, I mean, they're going to need to because they'd clang a lot of shots for sure. I mean, I think the premium needs to be focused on shooting, like shooting in various different contexts, whether that's from like a stretch, but like the only thing that, okay, so this might be a good little thought exercise. Can you think of four like large threes, fours, and small fives through the years that have like improved vast amounts in shooting from their first couple seasons into their like prime? Who jumps to mind? Can you think of anyone? Like, and I'm using like Onyeka Okongwu as an example. Like, can a guy like that, like he looks like, you know, he shoots free throws really well, looks like he's got a decent shooting form. If he can stretch his game out to three, are there any other comps like him that have improved to the point that Okongwu would need to improve to in order to make our squad make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I mean, he's a 78% free throw shooter, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's reasonable.
Nice
and
touch.
Yeah, I mean, like Burke Lopez is a good example. Nikola Vucevic is another example of bigger guys who've, you know, extended their range out. Jonas Valanciunas is a great example.
True.
Guy who didn't shoot threes at all, had decent-ish touch around the basket and from the free throw line, and then they extended his shot out. And Jonas Valanciunas, Marc Gasol is another example. Pau Gasol is another example. Chris Bosh is another example. Like there's so many examples. Like Chris Bosh, if you look at his jump shot at Georgia Tech, I mean, he was shooting college threes pretty comfortably, and you're like, okay, well, you know, that's why he can hit 20-footers. I mean, there wasn't a priority on taking threes, but if Chris Bosh came into the league today, he'd be shooting threes on day one.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I think Onyeka Okongwu can potentially extend his range out. I think Christian Koloko can extend his range out, and Precious Achiuwa can extend his range out. I don't know if Jakob Poeltl can extend his range out because his free throw shooting is not very promising. So maybe Jakob becomes, you know, the fourth big in that group, and then all four guys spam the offensive glass. All four guys are defensively, you know, very competent paint defenders. You know, the underrated part about last year, you know, the breakdowns defensively is regardless of how great OG was or how hard Scotty tried, and you know how much positional versatility you were afforded with the lineups he played, Siakam wasn't good at the rim. He wasn't great point of attack, and Fred VanVleet was leaking oil point of attack, and Gary Trent was, you know, abysmal. So if you can take two of those situations out and replace them with significant improvements. And I know Siakam's a pretty good defender. He has a lot of good qualities as a defender.
Yeah,
but I think Precious
when he tries and he's locked in.
Yeah, but I think Precious and Koloko can be better defenders than him. Long term.
They 100% they are,
and
I think. Yeah.
I don't know if they are yet, but they definitely can be. And I think Koloko, just from his paint, you know, protection, is probably a better defender right now, or will be within a year. But yeah, like I think about guys like that, and I'm just like, okay, like to me, it's important to have this, you know, 10 deep roster. I've always, if I built a team, I would always go 10 deep. Right. I would want, you know, 4 wings. I would want 3 wings, 3 wing guards, big guards, you know, and I'd want 4 bigs. Like that would be my rotation. And I would want at least one of my bigs to be a guard, to have guard skills or to have like wing skills. And I would want one of my wings to have guard skills, and I want one of my guards to be able to shift down to the wing. So like basically like a team full of Bruce Browns, basically. Sure. You know, but I think the Raptors have that type of potential. Like Scotty could play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So he can fit with any lineup. Imagine the versatility that affords you. OG can play probably
2 through 5.
2 through 4, 2 through 5. Precious can play 2 through 4, not 2 through 4, 3 to 5. Gradey can play 2 through 3, and maybe if he bulks up at some point down the line. I mean, if Davis Bertans can do it, why can't he? Maybe he could play small ball 4. He's 6'8". So this is the Vision 6'9" in a nutshell. The difference is the last time they tried to do this Vision 6'9" thing, no one could shoot. But now you do Vision 6'9", everyone could shoot. Now it's a completely different game because now you're not like struggling and laboring to score. And now all that defensive and positional versatility stuff that you bank on, it actually shows up. So I think it could be really great. The fact that Gradey is 6'8" and not, 6'4" makes a big difference. It totally does.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that was a part of the whole him over Jordan Hawkins thing.
I think so too. And I think that was
I like Hawkins for sure. He looks like he can be a player. So I don't know, man. Just down the line, the Gradey Dick thing. I like what I've seen from him so far from Summer League. I feel like he has the potential to be better on a court with other with actual NBA players.
Yeah. I broke it down in the beginning of this live, like everything I've seen from him, and it's just like all the movement, all the intangibles. It's very great. His basketball IQ is off the charts, so I have no doubt that he'll be a really good player. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, man.
You probably got to bounce, eh?
Yeah, it's 2 a.m. So I'm gonna get to Steve-O, the last call, and then I'm gonna call it a live. There will be no more calls after that. But yeah, thanks a lot for calling in, man. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot for the tickets. I'm so sorry I couldn't use it.
No, dude. Yeah, not at all. I was just like, if you could wanted to. Great.
I really wanted to go too. I was looking forward to it all week. But yeah, last minute just something happened, so I couldn't. Yeah.
No, it's all good. Yeah. No worries. Have fun with Steve-O, and we'll catch you on the flip.
Cool. See you, man.
Take care, bro.
See ya. All right.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going, man?
Good. I fixed my internet, so hopefully we have a better conversation this time.
Yes, I remember the last one very well. Yes.
Sorry about that, man. But I don't know. Hopefully you could kind of see where it's coming from a little bit too. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. So upcoming like disgruntled stars. Like, do you think there's any movement come the trade deadline with Pascal and an upcoming star?
So you're suggesting holding on to him until the trade deadline and then potentially hitting the hammer closer to that date when another star becomes
like a better fit or something that you think would work better with the timeline that's been given, or?
I think. If I'm understanding your question correctly, waiting until the trade deadline to trade him for something that comes up at that point, I think it's just a tough situation because he's on. It would then just be diminished value. Implementing a player this good and this large a part of your offense becomes more complicated as the season goes on. You don't have a training camp, and further exacerbating the situation is he would be a rental. So now, instead of trading him for 82 games, the team that is trading for him may get maximum 32, 33 games back for him, right? That's really tough. It's hard enough to win with a guy in one shot, like for a team to trade for him today, implement him in their system, integrate him within their organization, get them comfortable, get to know each other, go through training camp, go through the ugly bumps and bruises of, the first half of the season. Maybe by the second half of the season, you've gotten comfortable. And then most likely you're going to need a couple of playoff exits to get this going. So it's already a tough proposition. And I think trading at the deadline just makes that more tough.
No, that's fair enough. I was going to say, you're obviously going to take a huge contract back that you for a year.
You could also take two smaller contracts back. Like, he makes $36 million. You can easily take back two $20 million players, two $18 million players, or you can expand it. To include guys like Malachi and Boucher and Thaddeus Young, and then take back, two very big contracts back. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that this team could go. To me, there's like a divide in the roster between the guys who are definitely off the block and the guys who are definitely on the block. And the guys who are on the block total about like almost $60 million in salary. It's a lot of salary.
Right. Yeah. And then just I'll ask as many questions as you let me, but so just put things into perspective. So like Desmond Bane, he signed roughly a $40 million contract. I think his base was like 35, but it's up to 40 million, right? So like Desmond Baines and like Dylan Brooks is technically what you'd be looking at for like 60 million for Pascal, right? So like just put him. I know this year the luxury tax is like 134, like up to 160 or something like that, which 60 million is obviously a large part of that, right? But I'm saying like I'm going forward, like realistically, Scotty Barnes is going to be getting something similar, if not like Scotty Barnes is going to be looking at 40 million in the next 2 years. OG Anunoby is probably going to be up around 40 million if he meets expectations.
I don't think OG will be at 40 million. I think Scotty will be averaging annual average value of his next contract will be probably 45. And I think OG will slot in somewhere around 35.
35,
so yes,
yeah.
you have $80 million marked between two players. That's a lot of money to pay two players. Yes, I understand that.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at is like, so obviously we gotta. I know you're all in on building the young. Like as far as it makes sense at this point, right? Like, what? But so like I'm just trying to ask. So like we obviously don't want to lose for 4 years, kind of thing, right? We want to say in 2 years we'll at least be competitive, right?
I think so. I'm just competitive this year.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, you don't know what you're getting back for Pascal Siakam yet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're getting back veterans who can shoot, the fit could be legendary. You know, I'll remember the Rudy Gay trade. I'll always bring that back. I mean, getting back Patrick Patterson, Chuck Hayes, and Gravis Vasquez, like 3 guys, and you know, shoot, who was the 4th guy? John Salmons. So it's 4 guys, right? So I mean, that's 4 guys who are all rotation players, most of whom can shoot, right? 3 of those guys could shoot, and they're efficient. And so you take that like parsed out roster that had been gutted to get Rudy Gay to some extent, and you fill it out and you get depth. Like, what was the big complaint last year with the Raptors? It just wasn't depth. You were playing Delano Banton, Malachi Flynn, you know? So having 10 competent players on your roster, like who can actually play rotation minutes across the league, is massive upside. It's a floor raising thing. You know, you'd be better than, I'd say, 25% of the league on day one with that. If nothing goes right for you, you'd be better than 25 to 30% of the league, because most teams don't have 10 NBA players. Charlotte Hornets don't have 10 NBA players. The Detroit Pistons certainly do not have 10 NBA players, you know, winning players. Dennis Schroeder is a winning player. He played for most teams. You know, I look at, I'm not sure, Otto Porter, if he stays, he's a winning player. You know, Gary Trent is a winning player. OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa, Jakob Poeltl, like, my God, like Chris Boucher, like this is a deeper team than people give it credit for, just because these guys didn't play last year, you know? So if you add 3 more pieces like that, I mean, this team is scary deep.
Okay.
It's also injury. That's also injury insurance as well, right? Because if your 11th guy is good enough to be 8th guy on most teams, well, then you're like the Memphis Grizzlies. You can weather injuries much better than most, right?
Yeah. Right. And I wasn't aware when we originally signed Dennis Schroeder, but I guess he played with Darko with the Thunder, right? What do you think his role is going to be this upcoming season? Do you think he's going to be a starter? Do you think he's going to be off the bench? Do you think he's going to be more of a set an example, what the coach wants? Like, how do you see his role this upcoming season?
Kind of like Patty Mills in the Brooklyn Nets, kind of like a first guard off the bench, set the role, be a veteran leader, etc. He talked about it. You know, he's still young enough that he probably still wants to start. And I'm sure that if Point Scotty goes disastrously, if there's an injury in the lineup, I'm sure he'll step right into the starting lineup, right? I'm sure that he will be widely considered, unless Gradey Dick makes massive progress very quickly. I think he or Precious will be your 6th man alternates, right? So if a center or a power forward is out, I'm pretty sure like they'll have him, right? Precious Achiuwa step into the starting lineup. And if 1, 2, or 3 are out, I'm sure that Scotty would just slot down to the 3 or 2 or whatever, and Dennis Schroeder would start at the 1, where Scotty would still do a lot of the initiation, but you'd have an additional ball handler. Or if it just goes absolutely disastrously with Scotty running point, which I have no reason to think that it would, but let's just say he really, really struggles with being full-time point guard, then I would not be surprised if Gary Trent Jr. moves out for Dennis Schroeder, just a guy who can attack the rim and create a little bit better. I have no idea, but my expectation would be that he'd come off the bench and be like the 6th or 7th guy on this roster. I think having a bench lineup, at least in theory, of Precious, Koloko, Otto, Dennis Schroeder, Gradey Dick, like that's a really good bench lineup for me. Yeah.
All right. I guess Marquise Noel. Do you see, like, I know you kind of, I was watching some preseason games. I saw you hint that they were running too much through him. But do you see him in a couple of years? Do you see him being a part of the rotation at all, or do you see him more of as a fantasy, more of a 905 star kind of, maybe getting a little run here and there?
I don't think so. I don't see it. No. I mean, like, I'll be happy to be proven wrong, and I'll be very happy for him. I'm from New York. He's from New York. I was an undersized guard, not that undersized, but I was an undersized guard, and he's an undersized guard. So he's living out my dream, man. Like, I mean, good for him, right? But the truth is, I mean, as hard as you work, there's certain skill sets that just, the league is just going bigger, right? There was a period in NBA history where point guards were very big, and then we went into this wave of point guards being very small. We're going back right now to point guards being very big again. Josh Giddey is huge. Scotty Barnes, Cade Cunningham. I mean, every night it seems there's a team with a guy who's 6'4", 6'5" at point, or sometimes 6'8". How are you supposed to guard a guy who's 6'8" when you're 5'7"? It's just not possible. So yeah, Muggsy Bogues, Spud Webb, a lot of these guys, I mean, Nate Robinson, I mean, Isaiah Thomas, like, these guys capitalize on the fact that they largely were in eras where point guards were typically around 6'1", 6'2". But when the average point guard in the NBA goes up to 6'5", and you're 5'7", and you're not like a crazy athlete, like, you're a good athlete, but you're not a crazy athlete, and you're a good shooter, but you're not a crazy shooter, to me, the physics of it just don't add up. But I mean, again, maybe it'll be a 905 fantasy. The other thing is, him being almost 24, it does affect things for me, as for sure. He's a 5-year college player. If he's not coming out right now and dominating summer league right now, like, I mean, that to me that's the edge, because his analytics in college are insane, but he's super athletic for a college player. Like, he's able to leverage so much quickness to get into all those little gaps. And I watched some Kansas State tape on him. Like he's just like punishing defenders in the pick and roll, and he's getting downhill, and he's even finishing inside. And I'm just like, there's a vertical limit to this, because now you're in summer league and you're going up against real NBA athletes, and it is not the same as going up against guys in college. It's not even close.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember Kevin Garnett with Minnesota there? I know he wasn't playing point guard, but a lot of times he used to guard the point guard on the defense.
That was more like his own shtick. Like, he would sometimes try to harass defenders. Some people don't remember this, but Kevin Garnett initially came into this league as a small forward. Because he was so skinny. He was like 210 pounds out of high school. So they played him at small forward because he could shoot. But yeah, he eventually progressed to a power forward, and then he progressed to a center. And the other thing people don't often realize about KG is he was not 6'11". It's often stated 6'11", but he's actually much closer to 7'1.5".
Yeah.
Huge.
I was more saying like on the defensive side of the ball. Like, do you remember how he used to kind of take away the center of the court? Do you see a similar role with Scotty Barnes, or do you think with Scotty Barnes, maybe if we're asking him to play point guard, we're asking him to do too much by leading the offense and trying to center the defense around him? Like, what do you see with Scotty Barnes? Because
that's a really good question.
I think Scotty Barnes should be a point guard, but I think we got to kind of like be realistic and say, like, either we're going to center our offense around him, or our defense around him. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what long term?
I would center the offense around him for sure, and I would have him operating in the middle of the floor, which is what I call like the superstar radius, kind of where Jokic likes to handle, where a lot of the superstars like to be. That's where I would put him on the offensive end, just so he can make the most decisions, see over the defense, etc., punish, get a little bit closer to the basket because he's not quite as great a shooter. So, he has the long strides. With proper spacing, Scotty Barnes 12, 13 feet from the basket is significantly more dangerous sometimes than Scotty Barnes 22 feet from the basket. So, yeah, but defensively, you're right. I mean, if you start, Dennis Schroeder is no great defender, right? But he's a good point of attack defender.
He's a hustle guy.
He's a hustle guy, but also like he can contain his guy. Like he's twitchy and his lateral quickness is great. For the lineup to work, either OG or Gary are going to have to occasionally, if not a lot, switch on point guards. I know Scotty thinks he can do it. He has really high hips. Getting around screens is really difficult for him. So if he can get his conditioning to another level, then yeah, no problem. There are a lot of 6'7" guys who can guard point guards. Case in point, OG Anunoby. He can guard point guards. Scottie Pippen could guard point guards. Michael Jordan could guard point guards. He was 6'6". So it's not impossible for a player that tall to guard point guards. They just need to get lower and they need to be really quick. So if Scotty can get his conditioning level and his overall like flexibility and dexterity and everything like to that level, then great, problem solved. But if you can't, then you're going to need someone to guard the quicker point guards, or you're going to have to play zone. So yeah, I'm not really sure if I would build a defense around Scotty Barnes. I know he's come out and said that he wants to win Defensive Player of the Year. I would build my defense around OG Anunoby.
Actually, fair enough. That's kind of my opinion too. I think if we're going to go all in on Scotty on offense, then we got to go all in on. Well, we don't have to, but I think all in on OG on defense would be the perfect match because those are two kind of max or near max players, right? So
yeah. All right, Steve-O, thanks a lot for calling in, man. I appreciate all the questions. I'm so happy that we had this conversation. I felt very badly about our last conversation. It did not go very well at all. You were kind of lagging, and I was just like, is he drunk? Like, what's going on with this guy? So I'm really happy you called in. Great questions. I'm really happy to end this live on that. But I am super tired, and it's 2:30 here. Are you in Toronto?
I'm Toronto, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you're also a bit of a night owl.
You don't sleep either, Rob?
I mean, I try to sleep, but yeah, I don't sleep very often. I've been told that this is disastrous for my health by a lot of people, but I also remember Kobe Bryant saying he didn't sleep very often. So I'm like, okay, I mean, like maybe to be great, you gotta sacrifice on sleep sometimes. But yeah, I'm gonna go to sleep now because I'm tired.
Keep hustling. Good things will happen, man.
Right.
Nice talking to you, Rob.
All right, bye. All right. Okay, thanks a lot to Steve-O and Vince and everyone who called in. Lane, really appreciate it. Yeah, all right. 2 hours, 7 minutes in. The previous live was, I think, really good. It was not a call-in live. It was just talking about the Pascal Siakam situation. If you're an insomniac, if you're going to be up for another hour, definitely go and check that one out. I think it lays out the cards on the Siakam thing in a very fair way. I hope that you guys can see that the weight, it's not just Scotty who's had that sort of weight lifted off his shoulders. Honestly, the minute Fred went to Houston and this organization shifted away from Nick Nurse and started addressing the elephant in the room, which was selfishness and the culture, I've also had a weight lifted off my shoulders. So to those people who have incorrectly assumed that, okay, well, this guy started out hating, he's just going to keep hating. And I'm not stupid. Like, I will shift. When things change, I change. So I am just feeling much lighter. When I think about the Raptors now, I no longer think, ugh. For last year, it felt, ugh. If there's a lot of that energy, it's not there anymore. I feel optimistic and I feel happy about this team. I hope that the return on Siakam will be great. And if the return on Pascal Siakam is not great, then I hope the return of Pascal Siakam is great. That's some interesting wordplay at 2:30 in the morning. Hit the sub up. Please hit the like on the way out. There's 193 people at 2:30 a.m. If I told someone, they probably wouldn't believe me that this was possible, but it is. So thank you guys for sticking with us. We are heading up to 7,000 subscribers, hopefully very soon. And yeah, the goal remains 10,000 subscribers by game 1. Let's do it. Some content coming your way this weekend or next week. Scotty Barnes, Jeff Doughton, some video breakdowns coming your way. We're going to get back to creating content on this channel, not just lives. I have more time. I just finished up a big editing assignment, so I am just devoting the next month to clearing out my house. I mean, my girlfriend and I, we just threw out like, I don't know, like 35, 40 garbage bags of stuff, just clearing out, reorganizing the space. Once we're done that, in about 2 days, I'm going to get back to content creation in a big way. All right. Peace out, guys. Talk to you later. Shit. Yeah, seriously, man. I mean, you know what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these Raptor channels, they grew around teams that were really fun to watch and really successful and had deep playoff runs. Pensari basketball basically is the rose that grew out of concrete, bro. We grew out of the worst and most frustrating season in Raptor history. That's where we started. So it can only go up from here, right? So take care, guys. And again, it takes 2 seconds. Hit the like on your way out. Appreciate it, man. Cheers.